Hi, hello, and welcome back to another Skyblock video. My name is ohSauce, and today we will be talking about the healer class in Hypixel Skyblock because everyone always ends up looking for a healer at one point or another. You clicked on this video because you are looking for a healer guide, and I am here to deliver that to you. I assure you that your questions will be answered by the end of this video because this took way too long to script. And I don't want to waste your time, so let's get right into it. First of all, just some general things for every single floor in dungeons. You're going to want an aspect of the end, 100%. You're going to want some type of zombie sword. I cannot count the amount of times that this thing has saved me. And you're probably going to want a grappling hook if you don't have that much mana. I personally don't really use grappling hook anymore because my aspect of the end is ultimate wise 5 and I could just teleport. But you might want to use a grappling hook. Other things you're going to want are some type of power orb, especially as a healer. A, dungeon orb, because those are important. Spirit leaps and super booms. Those are all, the base things you're going to need for every single floor. They just, quality of life, help you get around faster, and help you to complete your runs. For each floor, I will be saying a recommended armor set, and other gear for that set, and, sword. But of course, you can have a better one than the one I recommend. Recommended is just the baseline. And as a healer, you can become a Berserker healer or a mage healer or really whatever you want. I would say it's actually the most versatile class when it comes to gear because it's not specific to any one, class. I'm going to mostly be going over Berserker in this video because I've asked a lot of healers and they've all said that Berserker is better unless you have a Hyperion. And, well, Hyperions create exceptions for lots of things, not just healer class. However, Mage Healer is still really good on the earlier floors because of its room clearing abilities, and you don't really need that much defense. So I will be including alternate Mage versions for floors 1 through 4. Talisman Reforges are as follows. Shaded on common to rare, shaded or forceful, depending on what your specific stats are with your armor, on epic, strong on legendary / mythic. Now, things might change depending on your weapons and stuff. If you really want to get max damage, you can use a talisman optimizer. And then, after you have that, what you're going to want to do is reforge your talismans for 100% attack speed with whatever attack speed you have in the first place. So you might have a crochet tiger plushie, you might have a live dagger, anything that increases attack speed, dirty, stuff like that. So just make sure that you don't waste talismans by making too many things on attack speed. And then armor reforges are a little bit different in dungeons because you can have EHP or damage, but they basically go like this. Looking for more damage? Put ancient or fierce on your armor. Fierce is the cheap version and it's the standard, while ancient is the reforged stone version, obtainable in dungeons. Looking for more defense? Put perfect, which is the dungeon reforged stone version, or reinforced, which is pretty much just as good and it's the standard non-dungeon still reforged stone thing. Looking for more help? Put either giant, which is the dungeon version from the giant tooth, or titanic, which is the standard version you can normally reforge with. Giant is much better than titanic. And although these needs change from person to person and on floor to floor, I will address some general trends when it comes to reforging on each floor when we get to that part. And weapon reforges go like this. Sharp if broke, dirty / fabled if not as broke. Dirty gives more hits, while fabled gives more damage per hit, and they pretty much have the same DPS, so take your pick. First off, we have the entrance floor. Now on the entrance floor, and pretty much for all of these floors, you're going to have some type of helmet. On entrance floor, you're going to have the Mender helmet. You might want to get the zombie helmet, although I would just recommend the Mender helmet. It's so much, just the doubling all healing from everywhere is so good. And then 3/4 strong, which you might just have, or rotten, which is one of the most early game dungeon sets that there is, because they really can't hurt you too much. And Ender armor. Those are all different 3/4 sets you can use for this. And then Weapons, you can have an Aspect of the Dragons, a Midas, if you have a Midas, a Reaper Falchion, Warped AOTE. Those are all good options, although you probably only need the damage output of an AOTD. For your pets, you could have a Tiger, an Ender Dragon on entrance, or an Enderman. If you're early game, you're probably going to want to go with the Enderman because it's the cheapest option. And as a healer, you definitely want to bring an Orb with you. On entrance floor, I mean, you'd be fine with Radiant, the earliest one, which is obtained from Wolfslayer 2, I believe. Next up, floor 1. Floor 1 is where things still aren't hard at all. Although, if you're rushing to get into dungeons and haven't done your stuff outside of dungeons, like all the content outside of dungeons, then you might have some problems. For your armor, I would recommend a Mender Helmet and 3/4 Strong or Perfect Tier 12, or Heavy Armor, which is basically a tank dungeons, early dungeon set, which has a Catacombs 2 requirement, so if you don't have that yet, then you're going to need to get it if you want that. And then weapons are the same from floor entrance, so Aspect of the Dragons, Midas Sword, Warped AOTE, and then you can probably still get by with a Radiant Power Orb. On floor 2, most of the things stay the same, although I would not use Strong because you're probably going to die. 3/4 Perfect Tier 12 or Heavy Armor, if poor, will still work, and you can still have your damage Reforges on. For your weapon, there's a new weapon for melee on floor 2, and that's the Adaptive Blade. Great thing about the Adaptive Blade is that it adapts. As you can see here, as a healer, you get bonus HP regeneration and more HP regeneration for other people. It's a pretty good early game dungeons weapon. It also doesn't cost that much, but as you can see, I can't show you because the auction house is closed. The Warped AOTE is probably still the better option for you though, because it's just much better in terms of damage. Same pets as before, Tiger, Ender Dragon, Enderman. Don't really need any defense pets yet. And you should probably have a Mana Flux by now. Radiant's probably still okay, but I get a Mana Flux, especially for this boss fight. Next up, we have floor 3. Now, on floor 3, the next level of the Mender Helmet is unlocked, the Mender Fedora. However, it requires Catacombs level 16, which people on floor 3 might not have yet. So you can stick with the Mender Helmet, but just be aware that this is a thing, and you should probably get it by floor 4. Same 3/4 as before. 3/4 perfect. Tier 12 works, but there's also Adaptive Armor, which you can get on floor 3 as a drop. And Adaptive Armor is also, well, it adapts to the person. And you can see that for each set of this piece, you get some more HP health regeneration. You won't be getting the full set bonus because you're wearing the Mender Helmet. But it's also just a pretty good set for damage as well. I mean, the fact that it used to be the best thing for dungeons means that it's still pretty good for early game and mid game at this point. For your weapon, you can still have your Adaptive Blade or your Warped AOTE. Your pets, I would not use an Enderman anymore. It just doesn't give enough. Instead, I would switch to a Tiger because Tigers are better than Endermen. Of course, if you have an Ender Dragon, then I guess you could use that. And on floor 3, I would have a Mana Orb, although it's a bit of an easier boss fight than the floor 2 one, comparatively. Next up, we have floor 4, the Thorn Boss. So on floor 4, I would get yourself a Mender Fedora. You should definitely be Catacombs 16 by the time you're doing floor 4. If we were to search on our thing here for floor 4, and see who's playing it, you can see that these are all pretty much above that level. Oh, whoops. Okay. For the other parts of your armor, you can have still 3/4 Adaptive, or 2/4 Adaptive and Spirit Boots, which is a drop from the floor 4 boss. If we were to head over to Malk, we can see Spirit Boots here. They give speed, which is probably the biggest thing, and then the Spirit Glide, which basically makes this third boss fight a joke, as well as having half-decent EHP. Same pets as floor 3, Tiger or Ender Dragon, although you might want to get a Blue Whale now if you really don't have that much EHP, but a better thing to do would be to start getting rid of some of those damage Reforges in exchange for Reforges like Giant that I have on my helmet here. Giant, it gives so much health. Especially in dungeons, it's like tripled for me, so or doubled. And then same weapons from before as well, although you might want to get a hyper cleaver, because if we were to look at the description of the hyper cleaver, you can see that it hits all of the enemies in a certain range, which is very good because in that floor 4 boss fight, there's just way too many animals, and berserkers and berserker type classes don't really have that much area of effect damage, so it's pretty good for the Thorn boss fight. And then I would have a Mana Flux on floor 4 100%, because it's pretty hard. Next up, floor 5. Yes, floor 5 is quite the big one for berserker type people because of the Livid Dagger. So, but we'll get to that in the weapons section. Floor 5 is also the floor where a lot of people start switching all or almost all of their Reforges over to health and EHP Reforges, especially as a healer. Berserkers might keep their other thing because they're Berserkers. But healers, you should probably start getting some more EHP at this point. Armor, Mender Fedora, as always, plus T8 or Tier 9 converted perfect armor. Converted perfect armor means that it's dungeonized and stuff, and it has quite a bit of defense, and if you pair that with a giant Reforged Stone, it can give quite a bit of EHP. But that's just the chest plate. Plus, 2/4 adaptive, as always, or you can get a carry for floor 6 to get 2/4 Necrolord, which has a whole bunch of EHP. Just mess around with your armor until you have the correct amount of EHP for this boss fight. Those are some recommendations, though. And then for your weapons, you're going to have either your Warped AOTE or a Livid Dagger. I would recommend the Livid Dagger, because Livid Daggers are pretty cool. It does quite a bit of damage, just as a weapon, but its ability, when you backstab, it basically does 100% more damage, especially if you have the about same amount of crit damage and strength while holding this weapon, which I do. And then for your pets, you might want to get a Blue Whale at this point, but you probably still don't need one. And I would have a Mana Flux or an Overflux, because this boss fight is where you really gotta tank these next 2 and 3 boss fights, actually, because they're the last boss fights. Next up, we have floor 6. This is also a pretty big one for healers, because they pretty much all are. But on floor 6, you have your Mender Fedora, as always. You could still have your converted perfect chests, although there is a better thing now. The 2 options are a perfect chest plate, tier 8 or tier 9, and 2/4 Necrolord, or just 3/4 Necrolord, which is better. And you're generally going to want EHP Reforges at this point, generally Giant, because Necrolord gives a lot of defense. This will help you survive Terracottas in floor 6. It will. There's really no other option other than to get more EHP. For your weapons, you are going to either have a Livid Dagger or a Flower of Truth. Flower of Truth is the better weapon in my opinion, especially for Terracottas, because it'll help you get that lifesteal. Because lifesteal is still pretty important even if you're not a Berserker. If you are a Berserker type class. If you are going to get a Flower of Truth, put Withered on it. It doesn't cost that much, and it increases the damage to be more than single hit from Livid Dagger, which is pretty good. And also, if you end up getting a Baby Yeti as a healer, then that's going to boost your EHP even more. Although you generally aren't going to be getting a Baby Yeti as a healer unless you're wearing something like Frozen Blaze, when people start to just not need the healer anymore, except for the Revive and Wish abilities. At this point, I would have a Mana Flux, an Overflux, or a Plasma Flux as a healer. It really does help a lot. It helps more than most people think, because Floating Blue Orb doesn't look like it does much. It does quite a bit. On floor 7, the final boss, we have an upgrade to the Mender series here. We have the Mender Crown, 5 million coins. I am not Catacombs 28 myself, as you can see. I am not even Catacombs 28, it is a disgrace. But Mender Crown nonetheless. For healers that are Catacombs 28 and above, it gives a little bit more health than the Mender Fedora. Not too much of an upgrade, but still an upgrade nonetheless. Now, the armor is where it gets kinda complicated. So you have your Mender Crown, standard, but the other 3/4 are very much up for debate at the moment. You could have 3/4 Necron during the like normal part of the dungeon, because you're not going to really need to tank that much because the dungeon is way easier than the actual boss. And you might even be able to ward 3/4 Necron in the boss, but that costs a lot, and most people don't have 2 mil to spare. You could also have just a Necron chestplate with 2/4 Goldor armor, which is the tank version, and it's going to give you lots of EHP. Or you could have just 3/4 Goldor, or you could even have 1/4 Necrolord chestplate, which is going to cost 40 mil less than any type of Wither chestplate, and 2/4 Goldor. And of course, you could mix and match those. Just try and get a good amount of defense with a good amount of EHP. Those are simply recommendations. Now, when you're in the boss, some of those things might change. The Bonzo mask is really making a comeback, especially in stage 2, right when you drop into that pile of withers. You tend to die at, unless you're really good, somebody's probably gonna die. But they don't die because they have their Bonzo mask on, and Bonzo mask is overpowered for what it does and what floor it came on. Plus, you can frag the Bonzo mask, which is gonna make it a little bit better and not as only useful for its ability, although it is only useful for its ability. And then the other thing that you're going to want to get is Spirit Boots, because by now everybody that's been doing F7 probably knows the glitch, where if you wear the Spirit Boots and then you go inside, you can fly around, grab those crystals, and just fly around during the entire boss fight, which is very helpful. Although keep in mind, it might get patched because I don't imagine that the admins designed the floor 7 boss fight to just have everyone flying around and aerial battles, and yeah. For your weapon, you should get a Hyperion. No, come on. For your weapon, you should get a Hyperion. Well, I mean, if you have the money, that is. But if you don't have the money, if you don't have 400 mil, then there are some other options. Especially, you have your Flower of Truth, really great weapon, especially for that floor 7 boss fight. This is probably one of the reasons why I can actually survive the boss fight. You're also gonna have a Livid Dagger if you're trying to do lots of damage, although it's probably gonna be handled by an archer and in terms of damage, and you really just need the lifesteal because most of this boss fight is just surviving and doing the tasks and things. And then you're also gonna want a Phantom Rod. And now a Phantom Rod, a lot of people know about this, but I still think it's slightly underrated how good this weapon is. Basically, the Phantom Rod is a rod weapon that you can hit something, and then it's hooked. Now, that's taking fire damage and venomous damage, but basically what you can do is click, and then it damages the enemy with your thing on. So you can hook them, and then you click a whole bunch, and it keeps on damaging them. So basically, you do ranged melee damage, which is really good as something like that, because you don't really want to get near Necron, or else he might kill you, especially if he's on Necron's Frenzy. So here it is again, you can hook him, and then you just click, and it dies. For your pets, you might want to get a Blue Whale, because Blue Whale gives lots of EHP in terms of health, but the Baby Yeti, if you do have lots of strength as a Berserker healer, it's probably going to give more EHP. And if you don't need EHP, Ender Dragon and a Tiger still pretty much work. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I do have one more thing. If you are a non and you don't have anything in terms of anything in Skyblock, and you're looking for a guild, then, well, I have found one for you. Its name is the Old Falcons, and I'll put it in the description. I'll put the Discord and other things in the description. It looks like a chill early game guild to me by what I can see. So if you're looking for a guild and you're early game, you can go there. Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or putting a like on this video. And with that out of the way, I have nothing more to say. See ya!